Hello? All right, I got to fix some settings on my computer really quickly. All right, I got to fix some settings on my computer really quickly. I got to fix some settings on my computer really quickly. All right, so there's definitely a delay. Yeah, I just shaved my head, so I don't know why. I just did. But there are definitely some major delays in regards to what I'm hearing on my computer and what I'm saying. So I am just going to just keep talking and just try to roll through this a little bit if we want to mess around. I'm not going to be sure what's going to be picking up because it's probably a good 30-second delay on my computer right now. Talking and just try to roll through this. Yeah, but it should work. I think we'll be good. So I'm just going to go for I'd probably know 30 minutes, 40 minutes, depending on what people want to do and what questions people have and things like that in regards to the test. But there's my wife's watching Irma coverage over there, so that's good. Ask the questions in the chat right here because that's going to work the best, so I don't have to jump around to different screens. So if you have any questions, ask them in the live chat that you guys are sort of at right now, and that'll work the best. A couple of things really quickly. First and foremost, I know from my class personally, there are a decent amount of people who have zeros on the review quizzes. So you need to get on that because that's sort of ridiculous. Yes, I am bald, Joel. But make sure you guys get on those review quizzes. There's a lot of people who have zeros on that, and I know that we're not going to let those people take a test. In regards to a couple of things on the test, and I'll get to the questions being asked. You can write on the test. We made enough copies for everyone, so you can write on the test, circle, cross out things. It's 60 questions, and it's you only have probably 45 minutes right around there, depending when we get started right away. I'm looking at the test right now, and a couple of things. Definitely know about the history and ideas of political machines. That's going to be really important in regards to some significant questions on the test. The word progressive pops up a lot. So do you know what progressive legislation is? And do you know what it means to be progressive when it comes to ideology? And there's a lot of questions in regards to demographics on the test. So just know your demographics, know the type of people and which way they vote and things like that. Well, I think this records, Joel. So I think you can write this. All right, I'll go over that again, and then I will answer Sarah's first question. So a couple important things to know for the test. Definitely know about political machines. Number one, the idea of what they did, what the history behind them was, why they went away. Know that. Know about the word progressive, just what it means. What would progressive legislation mean? Also know what progressive ideology is. So what does it mean to be progressive? And then definitely know the demographics of various people and the way they vote. So some of the activities we did in class, but obviously look at the reading and understand everything completely. America, I'll get to your question in a second. Sarah asked a good question. Her question was, what's the difference between party realignment and secular realignment? And they're sort of the same thing if you think about it, right? It's the idea of aligning to another party. So switching sides to another party, voting a different way. The major difference, though, between party realignment and secular, just know secular is a very gradual process. So that takes a long time for a realignment to happen. Good example is a bunch of people dying, like old people dying, like baby boomer generation gets old, dies, gets replaced by a younger generation of voters, and maybe they vote a completely different way. And that's going to take a long time, though. It's not going to be overnight that hundreds of thousands of people die and then a bunch of young people take their place. So both of them have to do with aligning with a different side or voting for a different side. Secular is very gradual over time, and party realignment can happen potentially in a critical election right away. Like we talk about, this election was sort of a critical election. A lot of people aligned with a different party and it was more immediate. So just know secular takes a little longer. I'm pretty sure this records, Anthony. I'm not 100% positive, but this should just, I think, pop right up back onto YouTube after this. America, there is no written portion tomorrow. The FRQ, there'll be 2 FRQs. Those will be on Tuesday. You'll have the full 45, 50 minutes to answer two FRQs. So same idea, right? You get 100 minutes for 4 on the AP test, so you're going to get 50 minutes for 2 on Tuesday. So that's going to be Tuesday. So just focus on the multiple choice tomorrow. All right, it does say this video. Good. You guys got to fire away some questions, though, because I can't just talk about the test the whole time and go over it. So I need you to ask questions if you have any ideas, any things that you're unsure about. That would be a good idea now. Looks like there's 62 people watching, so that's a lot of people. What does the word progressive mean? That's what Emily is asking right now. So let's think about political machines and one reason why political machines went away. So it argues that progressive legislation caused political machines to dissipate, go away, change the candidate-centered alignment. There are some ask and says me, I'm sure if you listen. All right, I'm going to jump into today's meet and tell them to come over here after this really quickly. But in regards to progressive, think about moving ahead, pushing forward, new things, new ideas, new thoughts. So when you think about progressive, okay. Oh man, now we're flying with questions. Okay, good. All right. Anthony asks, what is a linking institution? The basic definition of a linking institution is anything that connects people to the political process. So think about some examples of different things that connect people to politics. The election, right? Political parties are linking institutions. The branches of government can be linking institutions. Anything that connects people to the political process and gets them participating in politics is a linking institution. The main one that is covered in your text is obviously political parties. Their number one goal is to bring people into the political process, but the elections is probably number 2 for citizens, is bringing people to the political process. So that's linking institutions. Angel, I don't really know what you mean by what precedes party realignment. Can you reword that question? So what exactly precedes party realignment? Reword that question. I'll get back to it. Can you go over why the National Convention formed? There is a specific reason why we formed the National Convention. All right, there's actually a specific question on the test. So you need to think about what we had before the National Convention and how were things run before we had this massive convention that they elected Democrat and Republican candidates. Okay, they had very small groups doing this, right? Very small caucuses forming together, forming opinions, not really representing the people that well. And that wasn't when it wasn't candidate-centered politics. The National Convention came along to sort of center this process and make sure that everyone can find out what's happening, sort of has more of a voice, and we're focusing more on a single candidate, at least for presidential nominee. So in regards to National Convention, understand that sort of replacing a smaller caucusing group process. Miriam asks, can you explain a think tank? Yeah, think tanks are something that are very influential, especially to Donald Trump right now. They are people from various walks of life, but usually CEOs, important business leaders, and they meet together and they provide and start to think of ideas to help solve certain problems. So Trump really focuses on his economic think tank, and they meet and they talk about what are some different things we can do in regards to legislation to help the economy. Now, these people aren't really in government, but they are people who have a good pulse on what's going on in society. So I know Trump has had some major issues with some of his think tanks lately because he's disagreed with what they said and things like that. So think tanks are groups of people, usually prominent business leaders or other people who have high standing positions in society, to provide ideas on how to run our country. Oh, okay, Angel. Yeah, I mean, basically realignment, we're talking about either a gradual secular realignment. People are moving geographically throughout the country. People are dying off, and that's realignment. Or we have critical elections, which happen much quicker in regards to realignment. So we saw that with this last election. America, why is Europe better than us? They eat a lot healthier. I don't know. I mean, Europe's not better than us. They have just different some of them have different forms of running their government. We're a major two-party system here in America. We have a winner-take-all system when it comes to electoral college. Europe has proportional representation, which means that any party can potentially win some seats in Congress. As opposed to this, it's usually Democrats and Republicans in a single plurality district. Joel, you do not have to know anything about delegates tomorrow. If anything, just know that they're, like the reading quiz said, they are elite. They're educated much better than normal people in society. And just know that about delegates. You don't need to know anything about the delegation process, how it works in regards to the primary elections or anything like that, because that's the election unit. So don't worry about that. I keep staring at myself in this live stream, and I'm like freaking myself out with my bald head right now. So it was a bad idea. Isaiah, how's it going, man? It's sort of a weighted question, Isaiah. A populist. I'm going to draw something really quickly and help you guys out in regards to populist. And I think this will help you in regards to that. Let's see. I'm waiting for my live stream to catch up here, so this is annoying. All right, so if we look at the Nolan chart, right, a status in regards to using government wants to use the government to control the economy and economic things, and also wants to use the government to control social aspects of society or behavioral aspects of society. So they like government control. Now, when you think about a statist, statists usually like to use this for their own benefit. So let's think about Korea, like Kim Jong. He's sort of like a statist. Like he likes to use the government for his own benefit to help him. Okay. Now, when it comes to populist, all right, give me a second. This is sort of messed up. All right, so when it comes to populist, a populist wants to use the government, the same idea, right, in regards to economy and social and behavioral things. But a populist wants to do it for the people. So they're not doing it, they argue they're not doing it for themselves to help keep themselves in power or anything like that. They're doing it for the people. So Bernie Sanders is a populist, and he's doing certain things for a certain group of people. Let's think, he likes the he wants to raise minimum wage, he wants to make college free. So he's a big focus on helping people in regards to the middle class, the lower classes. So he's a populist, wants to use the government to help those people. Donald Trump, we're going to argue, is a populist as well, right? He wants to use the government, but to help a completely different group of people. So you need to think about that in regards to Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump as populists. Use the government to help certain groups of people. So that's a populist, right? With the idea of the statist with government control over everything. I hope that helps, Isaiah. Hopefully you can read that. Alfred, Mr. Lang, can you explain what proportional representation is in a simple way? All right, so proportional representation is this idea that I think it works much better for Congress. We can't really talk about proportional representation when it comes to presidential nominations. So with proportional representation, if someone is running for a seat in the Senate or a seat in the House, okay, if they win the majority of votes in their district or their area, they win that seat. All right, that's what the winner-take-all system in America. Now with proportional representation, let's say I was running against Mr. Bailey. I won a certain number of votes and Bailey won a certain number of votes. Then we can maybe potentially both be participating in Congress. It doesn't work very well if you talk like single people, if you talk parties, okay? So we got the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, and I don't know, the Marijuana Party, and they're all running for seats in Congress, some representation in Congress. If it was proportional representation, if the Marijuana Party won some votes, they would be able to have some representation in our government. That would happen somewhere in Europe. That's not going to happen here because it's a winner-take-all system. Whoever gets the most votes gets the representation in Congress. Okay, so just know proportional is based off of proportions. So if you win a certain number of the vote, you get some representation in Congress or in Parliament or whatever you want to call it. America, what are political parties prohibited from doing? There are not many things that they're prohibited from doing. There are some restraints on finances. So not really going to be on the test too much, but when you think about campaign finance, there are some restrictions as to how much money they can collect, how much money they can distribute to their candidates. That is definitely something that they're prohibited from doing. There's some restrictions on them in regards to that with finances. Angel, let's not even worry about the difference between delegates and superdelegates right now. Just know that superdelegates do not have to listen to the people. They have a complete freedom of who they want to help choose and give their vote to for the primaries in the national convention. Just know superdelegates are super. They don't have any responsibility to the people. Sarah, the phrase top-down has come up on a few quizzes. Yes, it has. I'm going to draw something else terribly right now, hopefully, to help us out. Oh my God, my handwriting's terrible. All right. So this pyramid's pretty important when you think about top-down political parties. Come on, I gotta move this up. This delay is killing me right now. Okay. So the national level has the most power. Like they have the most influence. They do. Okay. So like that's what we hear about in the news. They have the most money. And basically the idea about top down is they come up with the party platform. They come up with a lot of public policy and they distribute it to the local, state and local levels. So it's a top down effect. They come up with the ideas and what they want done and they distribute it lower to the state and local levels. Now the local level and the state level they do more work though. They help organize the elections. They have more candidates involved in the state and local levels, but they don't get as much in regards to fundraising and money, so they have to depend on the national level. If you think about it, right, Mr. Rooney at one point was at the local level for the Republican Party when he was a mayor. So he definitely had some influence. He definitely did some work. And now that he's a U.S. senator, not a U.S. senator, sorry, an Illinois senator, he's now in this level, the state level of government. Now he has more power here. Okay, he definitely has more power. He's going more towards the top. All right, and he gets more money, has more fundraising as compared to the local level. And I know Rooney has said he never wants to go to the national level because that's where corruption is and greed happens. But when you think top down, just think the idea of the national being the most powerful, the most influential, and they distribute some of the ideas in public policy to the other levels. But they depend on these levels to help run elections, to help get people to go out and vote and things like that. So there's a lot of dependence in this pyramid. Hopefully that helps. All right, let's keep going here, man. There's a lot of questions. I'm going to make my nighttime tea. I gotta go to bed. Why has the power of political parties declined over time? Judith, just focus on candidate-centered politics. Donald Trump, if you think about it, the Republican Party doesn't even really like him half the time because he ran on different ideas, different platforms. He helped fund himself, but he was the representative for the Republican Party. But it's candidate-centered politics now. We focus on the face, who's representing the party, and not what the party really means. All right. Can you explain, this is a very specific question, can you explain how political parties link together voters, candidates, and other groups? Go back to this pyramid, right? And think about it. If we try to link together voters, candidates, and other groups, this top-down fashion will do that. The national level does a good job. Let's talk about the presidential elections. The national level does a great job of nominating the candidate, getting the candidate out there, getting commercials out there, fundraising, right? And then they distribute to the state and local levels, and the local level will work with get out the vote, start bringing people to come in and vote. You'll have people knocking door to door, talking about elections. So think about this top-down fashion when it comes to trying to connect everyone in other groups. Other groups, you want to think about interest groups. Interest groups play a major role in the political process. They are one of the major groups that donate money to political parties, and political parties have to respect that money and create platforms and policies for those interest groups because that's where the money comes from. All right, let's keep going here. Hold on. Can you cut hair, Joel? Because I would have loved that. Seriously, man, hook me up. What is the DCC, NRCC, and their Senate counterparts? Anthony, let's not worry about that right now. If we're talking about committees in regards to the Democratic and Republican committees and their Senate counterparts, that's a very specific question, and it's a good question. But let's save that when we get more into Congress and looking into Congress. That's a whole nother unit. So don't worry about that part on the test, Anthony. But that's a solid question. Nick, do the review quizzes count in our grade book? No, Nick, but we are not going to allow you to take the test until you're done with the review quizzes. And honestly, if I'm your teacher and you're finding me after school to come take the test, a 60-question test, and I have to sit around after school for 50 minutes so you can take a test, I'm personally going to be pretty pissed off about it. So I can't speak for Bailey, but that's just my opinion. I don't want to be sitting around watching a kid take a test where I could be helping other kids or doing something else with my time. So don't waste our time and just do the review quizzes. I love you, Nick. America, can you explain funding for smaller campaigns like state positions? America, I could explain that, but that's not going to be on this test. That is the elections unit. So you can sort of wait on that question in regards to funding for smaller campaigns. But I can answer that very quickly. State positions will get money from the national level. They will get a lot of funding from their party at hand. So that forces a lot of discipline, party discipline, because if you aren't following what the party wants you to do, even at the state or local levels, and you're dependent on this money to campaign, that's not a good thing if you break away from the party. So party discipline is something you do have to know about in regards to staying true to your party, and funding and receiving fundraising is something that happens in regards to that. Manuel, what are the main things, important things to know for the test? Well, I don't know if I'm going to help you with that one, Manuel, but if once this ends, why don't you just listen to the first part of this, rewatch it because it saves it. And I talked about a couple of things that I thought popped up on the test frequently that could help you out. Juan, what is party unity? Well, what does the word unity mean, Juan? Think about that, right? We want to unify our party. We have to make sure that we're strong together. That is one of the roles, not the number one role, but one of the roles of the national party chairperson, okay? So Tom Perez for the Democrats, Romney for the Republicans. Create a unified party. Make sure that they are staying true to themselves. They're voting true to themselves. They're supporting each other. So that is a thing that the National Party Chairperson has to do, is create party unity. But it's not the number one thing that the National Party Chairperson has to do. So Definitely check that out and know the roles and responsibilities of the National Party chairperson. Whew, America, that's a good question. Man, I'm gonna get back to that one. Hold on a second. I gotta change my battery level here really quickly. Give me a quick second. Okay. All right. I think this is good. Joel, I'm probably going to go for till 45, I think. So a good another 20 minutes or so. My daughter's actually still up, so I might give her a little kiss, read her a book maybe. But we'll see. If you guys are throwing some good questions out here, we'll definitely go after it. America, in regards to your question, who's more consistent in their ideology, who stays more alike, Democrats or Republicans? I don't think there's really a good answer to that. I think right now, if people would argue, if you look in the news, a lot of people say the Democrats are really splintered in their support for different people and some of their ideologies. But honestly, couldn't you say that the same thing for the Republicans? They couldn't pass a repeal for Obamacare. They're having issues trying to pass a new tax plan. So in regards to keeping ideologies alike and the same, I think everyone's all over the place. So that's why most people identify as a moderate, right? Even if you're Democrat or Republican, you usually identify as a moderate. All right. Can you explain how party discipline is enforced? For Kev, that is like straight up a question from the test. How are you asking that right now? Like that is literally a question on the test in regards to party discipline. There are a couple ways party discipline. Let me see. Yeah, that's like literally like the same exact wording for a question. In regards to party discipline, you have to think about a couple of things, and you might want to look into this yourself, but you have to think about the idea of if you want to be true to your party and you want to stay true to the party, there are some consequences if you are not true to that. Fundraising is one. You might not receive funds from the party. They might choose a different candidate to run against you, and we've seen that before. If you're sort of breaking away from the party, they will fund a different candidate to run against you. Like Democrats will fight against Democrats. So there's elections play a good role in party discipline. Fundraising plays a good role in party discipline because, the party can ostracize you and go away from you. Let's keep going. What is partisan polarization? That's from Anthony. Anthony asks, what is partisan polarization? The idea of polarizing to one side. So I'll draw another little thing here. Anthony, are you in my class? I don't even remember, but I think we talked about this in my class. Anthony, it should be posted at the end. Anthony James, yes, it should be posted at the end. All right, so if you see the two circles over there, Democrats and Republicans, you have a lot, there's people everywhere, right? Everyone has different ideologies. And the idea of partisan polarization is this idea of being attracted to one side or the other. Like people went to the Democratic side, people go to the Republican side based off ideologies. And that's a problem with our two-party system and why third parties can't do anything, because the two parties are so big and they're so powerful. People just tend to go to one side and they polarize to one side and they break to another side. Partisan polarization, that idea. The word polarization just means that there's usually a yes or no. People support it and they don't. Donald Trump is a very polarizing figure. Okay. No one's like, oh, he's a good guy. He might do okay. I think he's going to do all right. No, like people are like, oh, I love Trump, right? The silent majority stands for Trump. Or people are like, I hate him. He's ridiculous. He's a polarizing figure. So the idea of partisan polarization is supporting one side or the other. And in Congress right now, we have something called hyperpolarization, which means that you're so on your side, you're so polarized to your side that you will do anything to hurt the other side, even if it is a good thing, because you're so polarized to one side. It's hyperpolarization. Don't know if that helps. It's sort of hard to explain through this live stream when I'm like on a delay right now. All right. What's the difference between the national chairman and the national chairperson? Emily asks that. I think you can just Google that one, to be honest. That one's a little, it's like, check it out. Is there a difference between that? Are you mixing your words up? Are those two different things? Exactly. No for the test, national party chairperson. Know that for sure. Okay. When we talk about chairman, are we talking about committees? What are we talking about? You know, check that one out. I think you can look that one up. Hannah, that question is crazy specific. After the year 1864, what political actions resulted in the big shift between parties? So what happens after 1864 that shows a shift between political parties from, are you talking about realignment here? What exactly are you talking about? Do you mean in regards to big shifts? Can you reword that question a little bit? Emily, what's a personal following? Don't worry about much of that. I think that's something from the book that you don't have to worry about. Don't be stressed out about personal following. You're fine. Maybe talk more about political machines and if they still happen today. Maya, definitely know about political machines for the test. Political machines were this idea of, right? Wait for that to pop up. But political machines were this idea like people were immigrating to this country. Okay, and they were getting off the boat, and we have these two major parties, the Democrats and Republicans, and they are going, hey, do you want a job? Like, do you want to work? You're coming to this country right now. What do you need? And if they got them a job or they provided favors, they said, just make sure you vote for Democrats on the ballot. Just if you see a D or you see an R, vote for that, right? If you see an R and you're a Republican, vote for all the R's. And political machines were really effective at doing this. But they don't happen today for a couple of specific reasons. Number one, legislation has prevented this from happening because it's definitely corrupt. Immigration has gone down, and we're candidate-centered politics now. So we focus on the candidate more than the party. People don't just go to the ballot box anymore and just vote for all Democrats because they're a Democrat. That doesn't really happen too much anymore. They like to look at the names and know who they are and like what they look like and all those things. Angel, a libertarian. I'm just going to write this for libertarian, figure it out. All right. So Bailey promised you would show us your dog. Yeah, I'll find my dogs. Hold on a second. All right. So libertarian, right? Libertarians believe that government should be hands off. The government should not touch anything in regards to the economy. Let's be very laissez-faire with it, right? In regards to social and behavioral actions of people, people can do whatever the hell they want. They want to get abortions. They want to smoke weed. They want to be a transgender, whatever. The government shouldn't do anything to make decisions for them. It's their own bias. It's their own choice. So libertarians are very hands-off. Watch Parks and Rec. Ron Swanson's my personal hero. He's a libertarian. Why has the U.S. become more polarized? Polarized in regards to what, Judith? Polarized in regards to supporting parties? If that's the case, it's because we have so much technology nowadays, right? Everyone sees everything right away. You know, back in the day when people were running for elections and we didn't have it on Snapchat and Facebook and CNN 24 hours a day, you know, people had a chance to win elections if they were a third party. If you were independent, you were running for a seat in Congress, you could win because maybe no one knew about the other candidates because technology wasn't around. Nowadays, because everyone gets their information so quickly and we have so much technology, the Democrats and Republicans can just dominate the news cycles. And that's all people hear about, so that's all they vote for. Third parties don't really stand a chance. Brianna, just rewatch this. I already talked about what a statist is. I'm not going to do it again. Judith, what are the responsibilities of a national chairperson? Let's see. Why is Jared in this right now? That's sort of ridiculous. All right. Responsibilities for a national party chairperson. Number one, they are in charge of fundraising. All right. Like, let's get funds for the party. They have to handle that. Number two, they want to squash any problems between party members. So if people aren't getting along, it's their job to try and be the moderator between those. Number three, they also have to promote party unity. They have to help unify the party. And last but not least, they have to be a face for the party. So when you think about the Democratic Party, you think about Tom Perez, you think about this guy, and hopefully he's saying good things that represent the party fully. And he's, you know, referring back to the national party platform. So those are the responsibilities of the national party chairperson. Stop asking about libertarians. Just watch this or read your book. That might be a good idea, don't you think? Jared, you want to run for president again? Let's run for president again. Let's do it, man. You only served 1 term, so Constitution says you can serve 2 terms. Let's get after it. Whew. Emily, what do they mean that minor parties don't have unrestricted access to the ballot? Emily, third parties, minor parties can get on the ballots. Okay, there's other restrictions that hurt them. Number one, like they're not allowed to participate in debates most of the time. They need 15% of the population to support them before they can participate in a debate. Like if you think about this last election, Gary Johnson was close. Like he almost was able to participate in the debate between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, but he did not receive that. He was still on the ballot though. Third party was still on the ballot. That depends on polling as well. But a lot of times when it comes to minor parties, they're not going to show up on the ballot a lot of times because they don't get enough support. You can write in any vote you want. I mean, a ton of people voted for Harambe this year in the election. It's ridiculous. Our country's terrible. All right. Woo, Dominic. Dominic, that's the Nolan chart, man. Can you explain the difference between pure conservative liberal and conservative libertarian? I know your reading review quizzes talk about pure liberal and pure conservative. All right. I'm running out of paper here. Crap. All right. So this is like the right side of the Nolan chart, right? Conservative. When you think about that, right? If you're saying pure conservative, you're saying that someone is right here, okay? I mean, they are true to their thoughts on economy should be hands off. The government should be hands off the economy, but the government should be involved in people's social well-being and behaviors, and they should make restrictions or control things like that. That's pure, okay? The far end of the spectrum is pure. When you start going more towards the middle, all right, you're starting to go more towards moderate or centrist. And when you have that, now you're not a pure conservative because you may, like, anytime you have an ideology that is more liberal, it pulls you this way. So that means you're not pure anymore. So just know the idea when it says pure conservative, pure liberal, that is like the utmost, belief what a conservative would believe. There's not a lot of people out there that are pure conservatives or pure liberals. They mostly mix up, right? We have moderates. That's the most important thing, okay? In regards to conservative and libertarian, draw it out, man. Think about conservative and libertarian. Libertarians are completely hands-off. Conservative libertarians and conservatives do have some belief on what the government should handle and control. Ishmael, can you explain get out the vote? All right, that I think a lot of kids mess that up, right? It's not just getting people out to vote. That's not the idea of get out the vote. If that was the point, right, you could hurt yourself. All right, if I'm Mr. Rooney, all right, I'm a Republican, and I just like drive around a van and pick up a bunch of old people to go vote, how do I know they're going to vote Republican? What if they vote for my Democratic opposition? So the idea of getting out the vote is getting out people who are loyal to the party already. So getting, if you're a Republican, getting Republicans who may not go out and vote. We have low voting numbers, right? Half the country doesn't even vote. But if you can identify people who are Republicans and get them to vote, obviously you have a better chance of winning. So getting people who are loyal to your party or representative as Republicans to vote. Kayla, for the test tomorrow, what are the main things we should go over? Oh, man. Kayla, just watch this. I talked about it at the beginning. Anthony, what are crucial elections? We have that. What does the National Committee do from Judith? What's a precinct from Emily? Can you explain party de-alignment? All right, so these are our last couple of questions I got in here right now. Man, 68 people watching. That's pretty legit. Good for you guys. That's awesome. So I am going to write a couple of these things down really quickly. Okay. Anthony, in regards to crucial elections, I think that's something you could probably find in your book or look up. But when you think about this idea of crucial, if something's crucial, what does that mean? Obviously, very significant, very important. Something needs to get done within this election. When we talk about crucial, think about our election, right? We had a critical election and sort of a crucial election. We had a Republican Congress, okay, already. And we had a Democratic president in Obama. And what we see with this election is that now we have a completely Republican Congress and a Republican president. And we saw a huge shift of people voting who voted Democratic and actually ended up voting Republican this year. It's like a pendulum back and forth. Okay. And, you know, right now we're at the Republicans, like people voting Republican. And that's sort of like the hardcore side of it. But I think in 4 years or 8 years or whatever, you're going to see a shift the other way. And you're going to see another critical election where people end up voting very Democratic. And you're going to see a huge shift from president to Congress, the Senate, House of Representatives, more Democrats in there. So I think this was definitely identified as a crucial election, something where a lot of things happened. I think France has something they're calling a crucial election right now. You might want to look into that a little bit. All right. The National Committee, Judith. Let's think a lot about the party platform with the National Committee and look into that a little bit with the National Committee and what they do. There's a whole section in your text on that. You know, there's like 3 or 4. There's probably not 3. There's probably 2 paragraphs on what the National Committee does. Just go in there and list it. Seriously, like go back in your book and check that out, Judith. Okay. Emily, precinct is super confusing. Okay. I want you to think about precinct like this. When we talk about precincts, anytime you see that word in the text or on a test, I want you to think about this level of government, okay? Not the federal level, not the state level, but the local level. Those are precincts. In Chicago, we have these people called aldermen and things like that who run precincts and represent precincts at the local Chicago level. They're Democrats or Republicans, but think about precinct, think about local, okay? Party de-alignment. All right, we have party ideas of party realignment, people realigning parties. When you think de-alignment, it's people leaving the party, people realigning themselves to other parties. So realignment, de-alignment, focus more on realignment, secular realignment, party realignment. That's more important than de-alignment if you think about that. Okay. Alfred, what do you think about Wikipedia as a review source? Alfred, honestly, I think Wikipedia is great. I wouldn't have a problem with that. You can really search a lot of these things, and I promise you right now, you can find Quizlets or review guides already made by students for these chapters. If you search hard enough, everyone's taking the same AP Gov test. So there are kids out there who have created review sources and things like that, and you can find that. Like, Hannah, if you Google that question right now, like I'm going to try that right now, all right? If I just type that into Google, maybe not that question. That's too specific. So that question's a little more specific. But when you're talking, Hannah, your question's about the Civil Rights Act, right? And talking about civil rights. Okay. Democrats were less likely to vote for the Civil Rights Act in 1864 and supporting, in the 1950s, 1960s. But when you start to think about civil rights and whatnot, Hannah, that's super specific. Don't worry about it. It's not on the test. That's a question that's more for discussion, like in class, and pulling up some articles and pulling up some documents to help you guys out with that question. Don't worry about it for this test, but save that question, Hannah, especially when we get to the unit, when we talk about civil rights, and that will help you out a lot. America. So there's a difference between critical and critical elections. America, that doesn't make any sense. Do you mean crucial elections? What do you mean? All right, sorry, someone send me a message right now. Okay. you guys just know what a critical election is, okay? Know the idea of a critical election and what that means, okay? And probably when we get a new textbook, it's going to talk about critical elections. Don't worry about crucial elections. Know about critical elections. And that's in your text. That's a term in your text. Okay. You found like 3 Quizlets only? Really? That's it? Okay. Well, maybe there's more. I could swear there's more Quizlets out there. But if you guys go to like any AP site, AP Gov site, a lot of this stuff's going to be an AP Gov site as well. So, interesting. I thought there'd be more than that. Do you guys have any more questions or anything you want to throw out there right now in regards to anything? I can stick around for a few more minutes. I don't know where my dogs are. Sorry. I think they're sleeping. Is that Layla on there?
Yeah.
I don't know where they are. Sorry. Here's my kitchen. Do you want to see my kitchen? Right there. There you go. It's messy. There's a bunch of coloring right there. No, we're not getting a new book, Sarah, but when they produce another edition of the book, I guess. We have the first edition of this new book. They'll probably sit on this book for a couple of years and then fix some things, change a couple of things in regards to this last election when they look at some other polling numbers and come out with another edition. Most likely the school will just reorder the book. But honestly, we don't really like this O'Connor book as much as some other books. But it was one of the easier reads. So that's why we chose this book for people. So I guess I could spend like the last 10 minutes if you want, like flying through a couple of things on the test that I think are stand out on the test, especially. There's a misspelling right there. How about that? Okay. Think about the Constitution. Okay. Is there anything in the Constitution that references political parties? So we have a Constitution, which is our next unit, but is there anything in there that references political parties? Why? I'm getting text from Alex Chides. He has pictures of me online. What else on the test here? There's only one chart on the test to read on the multiple choice section. So that's nice. You only have one chart or graph to read. Still, okay. Don't worry about 1864, Hannah. I would focus more on the 1950s. How have people changed in the 1950s? Ishmael, look at, you're going to have to watch this again because I sort of talked about the difference between the process of parties. I mean, just know Europe is proportional representation. America is winner-take-all system, okay? And the winner-take-all system has really hurt third parties in our country. Joel, can you further explain what criteria has to be filled in for someone to be considered a populist candidate? Okay, yeah, that's a good question. I like that. I like that. Oh, man, that's a good question, too. Man, you guys are killing it. All right, Joel, in regards to populists, okay, just understand that a populist wants to use the government, okay? A populist wants to use the government to manage economic affairs, and a populist also wants to use the government to do things in regards to behaviors and things like that. So Bernie Sanders is a populist, and Donald Trump is a populist, but they do different things with that, okay? Bernie Sanders will use the government to legalize marijuana at the national level. So he's going to use the government to mess with people's behaviors, okay? If abortion wasn't legal already, Bernie Sanders would probably have legalized abortion. He would use the government to help those groups of people. He also wants to use the government in regards to the economy, raise the minimum wage, lower college expenses, go after mortgages, things like that. He wants to use the government to help people and change things. Donald Trump is the same way, okay? Donald Trump wants to use the government to create a new tax plan. Okay, he's using his government power to pull out of trade agreements in regards to the economy. With social and behavioral aspects of it, Donald Trump is very much involved in abortion and thinking about how he can nominate a Supreme Court justice that might potentially overturn abortion. He went after Planned Parenthood. So they use the government, okay, to change things for people. And it's about change. It's about supporting people. I hope that helps for populists. America, is the gender gap based on men? Oh, America. That's like straight from the test. Okay. Understand this. It's not the fact that a bunch of women, and this is hard because we say women vote more Democratic, women tend to be more liberal, right? Just know that men are not voting Democratic. That's the big thing in regards to this gender gap is men are not voting for Democratic candidates. They're voting for Republican candidates. Okay, so it's not this lean one way. It's just that men are not voting for Democratic candidates, and that's the big idea behind it. Women, yes, they tend to be more liberal. We had a lot of women vote Republican this year in this election. Focus on this idea that men tend to vote more Republican. They don't like the candidates that are provided by the Democrats. That's what creates this gender gap. It's the men cause the gender gap. The women do not cause the gender gap. I hope that answered your question a little bit. Yeah, women were split. It's just men do that. So what's Anglo-white? You can just Google that one. So going off something like that, what's a social conservative? Do you know what social conservative is? What's the difference between a conservative and a social conservative? Why don't you guys going to make sure you understand that for sure? Difference between conservative and social conservative. Okay, these things you can just Google, guys, man. Like Anglo-whites, Anglo-Saxon, like those are things you can Google. So just check that stuff out. You can Google a lot of this stuff. I didn't ignore you twice. I talked about populist twice, Joel. What are you talking about, man? Oh, I didn't see that one. Oh, that's a good question too. All right, I got you on this one, Joel. You don't have to know on the test what pork barrel projects are. Oh, but pork barreling is so good and so important. And you're going to have to know about that on the AP test. So the idea of pork barreling is, let's say we have a massive bill or a massive piece of legislation that Congress or the Senate is voting on. Congress members will try to put little like paper-clipped agendas into that bill. So I want to get some funding for my district. Okay, I want to get some money to fund my district for a project that they have. So the idea of pork barrel, think about porking up. Like if someone's a porker, they're fat, right? They're like, oh my God, you're gonna be a porker. You're eating so much food. So the idea of pork barrel is this adding little pieces of legislation to a big bill to try and help themselves win elections. Hey, look it, I voted yes to this bill, and on this part of this bill says we're going to get some money for our district, so that's going to help us. So the idea of pork barrel is, trying to add some funds to other piece of legislation to help a candidate so they can try and win elections. That's hard to explain. That's not a great explanation, but it's like the idea of fattening up bills with other little things in it to help representatives. All right, I'm gonna go. I'll go till 8 o'clock, so we'll do a straight hour. I think that'll be good. Bowie, why are you in here, bro? Okay, this question was asked a lot about the difference between delegates and superdelegates, and it's really confusing, right? I mean, that's a big part of the primary election process. Think about what the reading quiz asked you. All the reading quiz wanted you to know was, what are they? What percentage of the population are they? Who are they? We're talking about the economically and educated elite. That's who delegates are. In regards to superdelegates, you don't need to know particularly what they do, how it works. Just know that they do not have to represent the people, and the Democrats only use superdelegates. That's something in the text I don't like. The Democrats like to use superdelegates. They don't have to listen to what the people say, how the people voted. They can just give votes to whoever they so desire in the primary elections. Okay, so we're talking about the primary elections. Again, you don't really have to know about that for the test. I don't even think there's a single question in regards to that on the test. Know about socialization, guys. Know about political socialization. Know your demographic groups. There's questions on here that are a little confusing in regards to who would be the most likely to vote Democratic. So you have to understand that. Angel, thanks for answering that question for Miriam. I appreciate it. Again, know your demographic groups. What's a single member plurality district? Okay, in regards to single member plurality district, that is a problem why third parties can't win, Judith, is because it's a winner take all system. Districts are only represented by Democrats or Republicans. Okay, so that's the idea behind that. Okay, so if you think about the district you live in, all right, and we're going to look more at this elections. I think it's whatever District 4 in regards to Congress, you are only represented by one representative, either a Democratic or Republican. All right, I'm represented in my district in Schaumburg for Congress, this guy named Raj. He's a Democrat. There is no Republican representative. Someone ran against him, but he didn't win. So I'm only represented by one person, and it's either a Democrat or a Republican. There's no proportional representation. We don't get represented by multiple people in this district. That would be Europe, okay? Brianna, how do white-collared and blue-collar Americans vote? All right, think about white-collar. I'm white-collar, okay? I don't like to get dirty. I have an office job, right? People who work on the stock market, people who work in offices, they have higher incomes. How would those people tend to vote? As opposed to blue-collared workers who definitely have lower incomes. When we say blue collar, sometimes we talk about janitors, right? They wear this uniform that usually is one color, and they get dirty and then they wash it. Blue collar workers tend to have less incomes. They tend to vote more Democratic, right? Okay. Sarah, there was a quiz question about what was true before the rise of candidates in politics, and the answer was that, yeah, that question's terrible, Sarah. That was terrible on the, on the reading quiz. Now, in regards to your question, Sarah, we have to tie in the national convention to this. So one thing that used to happen before the national convention in Canadian center politics was like local state leaders would just caucus and they would just meet together and they'd choose who would be the best candidate. Okay. There wasn't a lot of influence from other parties or other levels of the party. They would just meet together, find the best candidates, caucus and group together and do that. Once the national convention came around, that got rid of that because now we have this huge convention where we have state, local, national leaders all there, and they're all talking about who the best candidate is. And now it's from the people, right? The state's not electing leaders. The people, they go through the primaries and the people vote for who it is. And that was Donald Trump for the Republicans and Hillary Clinton for the Democrats. So just know that now that we have the national convention, it prevents like local groups from meeting and electing their own candidates. It sort of just happens as a big, massive group. Okay. That question was really hard. That's a Bailey question on the reading quiz, so you can blame him. I'm sure he's watching right now too. Is there a way to change the requirements to qualify for running for president at all? Blue collar report. Settle down, Joel. I mean, the requirements are the requirements. We have them in the Constitution, don't we? So unless we change the Constitution, then I think you can rock that out. But that's what it is. Don't worry about the reading quizzes, Sarah. Like we'll handle it. We got it. We're still learning, right? I mean, we're still learning what are the best questions and what aren't the best questions. So I'll hook you up. No worries. Totally hook you guys up. So any last questions that you guys have? I hope this helped. It was sort of a whirlwind. Just going through again really quickly of the test. Anything else that I think sticks out to me? What's social services, right? Do you know what social services are? Think about social and behavioral things in regards to social services. Dylan, thanks for joining, man. No, I wasn't going to go today, but I didn't. I actually took my daughter to church this morning, so for one of her first times. So think about that, right? How do I tend to vote if I'm a frequent church goer? Oh, think about that for the test. That's a good one. Yeah, I'll show my dogs at the very end if I can find them. I'll walk through my house. Oh, settle down. My wife telling me what to do. What are the main functions of the political party? Know that. Definitely know that. Hardly any history stuff on the test, Sarah. I would say that if there was any true history things on there, there'd be maybe one like legitimate history question on there. Maybe two. That's it. So this is a lot of like knowing demographics and knowing the way people vote and all of that stuff. So let me look through really fast one more time. Maybe like 3 questions on history. Okay, just know about political machines. That's your big thing, okay? Yeah, I think you guys are good, man. Someone asked a question about plurality system. So understand what a single member plurality district is. There's a tricky question about voters in the South. Think about maps and demographics in regards to that. Other than that, you guys, I mean, you just gotta take your time, write on the test. It's a mess down there. I'm not going down my basement, sorry. Yeah, other than that, I think you guys will be good. Again, know what progressive means. There is one question in regards to governors. So do you know anything about governors and what their powers are? Like there's a paragraph in there. Oscar Romero. This is the full section. So yeah, for sure. I look like an egg. All right, I'm off in a second. Hold on. I'll find my dogs and then I'm turning it off. There's a dog right there. Oh, there's my wife right there. There's one of my dogs right there. That's Izzy. There you go. And then where's Layla? There's Layla right there. Yeah, she's really old. She's sleeping. All right. I'm done by everyone. So good luck tomorrow. Get your reading quizzes done, review quizzes, and take your time, man. I mean, like take your time on the hard questions, but fly through the easy questions, right? So attack it that way. Go after the easy questions first, star the hard questions, and go after them at the end if you have to. So there's not a ton of time, but some of these questions are real easy. It'll take you 5 seconds to answer. So good luck tomorrow. I will see you tomorrow. How do I stop this? I don't want kids to bother me anymore. All right.